The room was tense, the kind of quiet that pressed against your ears. Rachel Carter sat at a long table in the United Nations headquarters, her fingers tracing the edge of a folder marked classified. Around her, diplomats from across the globe whispered to each other, their voices low but urgent. The air smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh coffee, though no one seemed interested in eating or drinking. Today wasn't about pleasantries. It was about survival. On the screen at the front of the room, images flickered, maps of star systems, alien symbols, and grainy footage of spacecraft hovering near Earth's borders. This wasn't just another meeting. It was an interstellar peace summit. For years, humanity had been walking a tightrope with several alien species, balancing fear and curiosity. Now they were finally sitting down to talk, or so everyone hoped. Rachel glanced around the room. She recognized faces from previous negotiations, calm ones, nervous ones, skeptical ones, but none of them belonged to anyone wearing a uniform. That was deliberate. Earth had a strict policy. No military personnel at peace summits. It was meant to show goodwill, to prove that humanity wanted solutions, not conflict. Still, as Rachel shifted in her seat, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Her thoughts were interrupted when her tablet buzzed softly. A message appeared on the screen, encrypted and marked urgent. It was from General Harold Bennett, head of Earth's Strategic Defense Force. Rachel frowned as she read it. No military presence confirmed, it said simply. There was no explanation, no context, just those words. Why did he feel the need to remind her? And why now? Across the room, Captain Alex Monroe leaned casually against a wall, pretending to examine a holographic display of alien ships. In reality, he was listening closely to snippets of conversation. He wasn't supposed to be here. He'd slipped into the building using forged credentials. But his instincts told him this summit mattered more than anyone realized. Something about the way the aliens acted lately made his skin crawl. They weren't acting like enemies, but they weren't acting like friends either. Alex's eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on Rachel. She looked sharp, professional, but there was a flicker of unease in her expression. Whoever she was, she didn't seem entirely comfortable with whatever was going on. He filed that observation away for later. Back at the table, Rachel tapped her pen against her notebook, trying to focus. She knew the general well enough to understand that his messages always carried weight. Was he warning her, or testing her loyalty? Either way, it left a bad taste in her mouth. Just then, Ambassador Daniel Hayes approached her. His suit was immaculate, his tie perfectly knotted, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Ms. Carter," he said smoothly, pulling out a chair next to her. "I trust you're prepared for today." "I'm always prepared," Rachel replied coolly, meeting his gaze. "But I have to admit, Ambassador, I'm curious. Why do you think the aliens are suddenly so eager to negotiate?" Hayes hesitated, his smile faltering slightly. Then he leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Let's just say, some things aren't adding up. Be careful who you trust." Before Rachel could respond, the doors opened, and the room fell silent. The alien delegation had arrived. Their forms shimmered under the lights, neither fully solid nor transparent, as if they existed somewhere between worlds. Rachel straightened in her seat, forcing herself to appear calm. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. Nothing about this summit would be simple. Rachel watched as the alien delegation moved gracefully toward the center of the room. Their movements were fluid, almost hypnotic, and their glowing eyes seemed to scan every human face in the room. She felt a chill run down her spine, but kept her expression neutral. This was her job, to stay calm, no matter what. Ambassador Hayes leaned closer again, his voice barely audible over the soft hum of the alien's footsteps. "Notice anything strange?" he murmured. Rachel didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied the newcomers carefully. There was something odd about them, though she couldn't quite put her finger on it. They looked confident, almost too confident, as if they already knew how this meeting would end. Before she could respond, one of the aliens stepped forward. Its voice resonated through the room, deep and melodic, translated instantly by a hovering device above its head. "We come in peace," it said, the words smooth and practiced. "Our goal is cooperation, not conflict." The room erupted into murmurs. Some diplomats nodded approvingly, while others exchanged wary glances. Rachel noticed that Hayes clenched his jaw tightly, his hands gripping the edge of the table. He didn't trust them. She could see it plainly now, and his unease made her own doubts grow stronger. Later, during a short break, Rachel found herself alone in a quiet corner of the conference hall. She opened her tablet and began reviewing files related to past negotiations. Most of the records were dry and technical, filled with data about trade agreements and resource allocations. But buried among them was something unusual, a series of encrypted memos marked "Eyes Only." Her heart raced as she decrypted the first one. It mentioned secret military preparations tied to previous summits, plans that had never been publicly acknowledged. She was so engrossed in the documents that she didn't hear Captain Alex Monroe approach until he spoke. "You're not supposed to have access to those," he said quietly, startling her. Rachel quickly closed the tablet and turned to face him. His arms were crossed, his stance casual but alert. "And you're not supposed to be here at all," she shot back, narrowing her eyes. "Who are you?" "Just someone who's paying attention," Alex replied with a shrug. "I've seen enough to know this summit isn't what it seems." Rachel hesitated, unsure whether to trust him. But there was something sincere in his tone, a hint of urgency that matched her own growing suspicions. "What do you mean?" she asked cautiously. Alex glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "I've heard rumors about missing scientists, stolen tech, and weapons being sold to unknown buyers. Stuff that connects back to these aliens, and I think someone on our side is helping them." Rachel stared at him, her mind racing. Missing scientists, weapons? The pieces didn't fit together yet, but the picture forming in her head was troubling. Before she could ask more questions, a loud commotion broke out near the entrance. Several diplomats were arguing loudly, their voices echoing through the hall. "What's going on?" Alex asked, stepping closer. Rachel shook her head. "Nothing good," she muttered. As they both turned to investigate, she realized that whatever answers they needed wouldn't come easily, and time was running out. The argument near the entrance grew louder, drawing the attention of nearly everyone in the room. Two diplomats, one from Europe and another from Asia, were shouting at each other, their faces red with anger. The topic of their disagreement wasn't clear, but it seemed to revolve around accusations of hidden agendas and broken promises. Rachel Carter sighed deeply as she watched the scene unfold. This was exactly what she feared, chaos before they even got started. Captain Alex Monroe stood beside her, his arms still crossed. "Looks like we're off to a great start," he muttered sarcastically. Rachel shot him a glance, her lips pressed into a thin line. She wanted to tell him to leave, to stop poking around where he didn't belong, but something held her back. Maybe it was the way he observed everything so carefully, or maybe it was the fact that his warnings aligned too closely with her own suspicions. As the argument continued, an alien representative stepped forward, its shimmering form casting faint reflections on the polished floor. Its voice cut through the noise like a blade, silencing the room instantly. "This behavior is unproductive," it said, its translated words calm but firm. "If Earth cannot present a united front, how can we expect meaningful dialogue?" Rachel felt a flicker of shame wash over her. The alien was right, even if its tone carried a hint of condescension. Humans had spent decades squabbling among themselves, while trying to navigate life in a galaxy far more complex than anyone had imagined. But there was also something unsettling about the alien's composure, as if it already knew how this would play out. Later that evening, Rachel retreated to her quarters aboard the orbital station hosting the summit. Sitting alone at a small desk, she opened her laptop and began digging deeper into Earth's history of first contact with extraterrestrial species. What she found disturbed her. Decades earlier, humanity's initial meetings with aliens had ended in disaster. A simple misunderstanding, a mistranslation of a single word, had spiraled into violence, resulting in catastrophic losses on both sides. Since then, Earth had adopted strict policies to prevent such incidents, including banning military leaders from attending diplomatic events. The goal was to project an image of peace and cooperation, not aggression. But as Rachel scrolled through old reports and declassified files, she noticed patterns that didn't add up. Not all conflicts had stemmed from miscommunication. Some wars appeared deliberately provoked, orchestrated by shadowy figures within human governments and alien factions alike. These weren't random clashes. They were calculated moves designed to manipulate public opinion and justify further militarization. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. When she opened it, she found Ambassador Daniel Hayes standing outside, his expression grim. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. Rachel let him in, closing the door behind him. "What is it?" she asked, already dreading the answer. Hayes hesitated, then handed her a folded piece of paper. "I've been doing some digging of my own," he said quietly. On the paper was a list of names, human officials and alien representatives who had attended past summits. Next to each name was a note detailing suspicious activities, unauthorized meetings, sudden disappearances, unexplained wealth. "This goes deeper than we thought," Hayes admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "There are people on both sides working against us. Against peace." Rachel stared at the list, her stomach tightening. If Hayes was right, then the absence of Earth's military leaders wasn't just about avoiding provocation. It was about keeping them away from those who might exploit their presence for darker purposes. As Hayes left, Rachel sat back down, her mind racing. The weight of what she'd uncovered pressed heavily on her shoulders. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. Trust was in short supply, and danger lurked closer than anyone realized. The next morning, Rachel Carter entered the main conference hall feeling uneasy. The air was thick with tension, and the usual hum of quiet conversations had been replaced by an uncomfortable silence. Diplomats sat stiffly at their tables, avoiding eye contact with one another. Even the aliens seemed more reserved than before, their glowing forms casting faint shadows that danced across the walls. Rachel took her seat and glanced around the room. She noticed Ambassador Hayes sitting a few chairs away, his face pale and drawn. He hadn't mentioned what he planned to do with the list of suspicious names he'd shown her the night before, but she could tell he was troubled. Across the room, Captain Alex Monroe lingered near the back, pretending to examine a display of alien artifacts. His presence made her nervous, but she couldn't deny that his insights had been useful so far. As the session began, one of the alien representatives stepped forward. Its voice echoed through the room, calm and measured. "We propose a joint initiative to share resources and technology," it said. "This will benefit both our peoples and ensure lasting peace." The statement triggered immediate reactions. Some diplomats nodded enthusiastically, eager to embrace the idea of cooperation. Others frowned, whispering among themselves about potential risks. Rachel watched closely, noting how certain human delegates exchanged subtle glances with specific alien envoys. It was as if they already knew what was coming. During a break, Rachel decided to confront Alex. She found him leaning against a railing outside the conference hall, staring out at the vast expanse of space beyond the station's windows. "You're still here," she said, approaching cautiously. "Where else would I go?" Alex replied without turning around. "I told you, I'm just trying to figure things out." Rachel crossed her arms. "Well, your figuring things out is making people nervous, including me." Alex finally looked at her, his expression serious. "Good, you should be nervous. Something big is about to happen, and I don't think anyone in that room is ready for it." Before Rachel could respond, a sudden commotion drew their attention. A group of security officers rushed past them toward the main hall. Curious, Rachel and Alex followed, blending into the crowd gathering near the entrance. Inside, chaos had erupted. One of the human delegates was shouting accusations at an alien representative, claiming they had tampered with Earth's communication systems. The alien responded coolly, denying any involvement, but the damage was done. Trust, already fragile, began to crumble further. Rachel pushed her way through the crowd, trying to get closer. As she did, she overheard snippets of conversation between two diplomats. They spoke in hushed tones about secret shipments of advanced weaponry being smuggled onto the station, shipments linked to factions within the alien delegation. Her blood ran cold. If Alex's suspicions were true, then the summit wasn't just a negotiation. It was a cover for something far more dangerous. She turned to find Alex standing beside her again, his eyes scanning the room intently. "Told you," he muttered under his breath. "What do we do now?" Rachel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We expose the truth," Alex replied firmly. "But we'll need proof, and allies we can trust." Rachel nodded slowly, though her mind raced with uncertainty. Exposing corruption on this scale wouldn't be easy, especially when she didn't know who was truly on her side. Still, as she looked around the chaotic room, one thing became clear. The stakes were higher than ever, and time was running out. Back on Earth, General Harold Bennett sat in his dimly lit office at Strategic Defense Command Headquarters. The room was silent except for the faint hum of monitors displaying live feeds from the orbital station hosting the summit. His face was pale, his jaw clenched tightly as he scrolled through encrypted messages on his tablet. Each update painted a bleaker picture: rising tensions, accusations of sabotage, and whispers of betrayal. It was only a matter of time before everything unraveled. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he barked, his voice sharp and commanding. The door opened, and Colonel Laura Simmons stepped inside, her expression grim. She held a folder in one hand and hesitated briefly before speaking. "Sir, we've received reports of unauthorized activity near the station. Ships without clear identification are moving into restricted zones." Bennett's eyes narrowed. "Any connection to Monroe?" he asked, referring to Captain Alex Monroe, whose presence at the summit had been flagged by intelligence operatives. Simmons nodded. "It's possible. He's been seen meeting with several key figures, including Rachel Carter. They might be onto something." Bennett leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He didn't like loose ends, especially ones that could unravel decades of carefully maintained secrecy. Project Eclipse, the classified initiative designed to counter alien threats, was supposed to remain hidden. If Monroe or anyone else exposed it, the consequences would be catastrophic. "Take care of it," Bennett said finally, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Send a team to intercept them. Make sure nothing ties back to us." Simmons hesitated but then nodded sharply. "Understood, sir." She turned and left the room, closing the door behind her with a soft click. Meanwhile, aboard the orbital station, Rachel and Alex worked quickly to piece together evidence of the conspiracy. They had retreated to a secure communications hub deep within the facility, a place rarely used by delegates. Rachel accessed confidential files while Alex monitored security cameras, ensuring they weren't being followed. "This is bad," Rachel muttered, scrolling through intercepted transmissions. "These shipments, they're not just weapons. They're prototypes based on alien tech. Someone on our side is selling us out." Alex frowned, leaning over her shoulder to study the data. "And whoever it is has friends in high places. Look at these clearance levels." He pointed to a series of codes marked "Top Secret." "Only a handful of people have access to this stuff." Before Rachel could respond, an alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed overhead, bathing the room in a harsh glow. "Security breach," a robotic voice announced. "All personnel report to designated zones immediately." Rachel's heart sank. "They know we're here," she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. "We don't have time to worry about that now." Alex said urgently. Grabbing a portable drive, he copied the most critical files onto it. We need to move. Now. As they slipped out of the communications hub, they encountered two armed guards rounding the corner. Alex reacted instantly, disarming one of them with practiced ease, while Rachel kicked the other's weapon away. Adrenaline surged through her veins. She hadn't expected to fight, but survival instincts kicked in. Once the guards were subdued, Alex led Rachel down a narrow maintenance corridor. There's a cargo bay at the end of this route, he explained. If we can reach it, we can escape using one of the shuttles. But even as they ran, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. Whoever wanted them silenced wasn't going to let them go easily. Rachel and Alex moved swiftly through the narrow maintenance corridor, their footsteps echoing softly against the metal walls. The red emergency lights continued to flash overhead, casting long shadows that danced eerily around them. Rachel's breath came in short bursts, her mind racing as she clutched the portable drive containing the stolen files. Every step felt heavier than the last, weighed down by the knowledge that they were running out of time and options. We're almost there, Alex whispered, glancing over his shoulder. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed his tension. He knew as well as Rachel did that escape wouldn't be easy. The cargo bay wasn't far, but getting to it meant navigating a maze of passageways patrolled by security teams, and whoever had sent them likely already knew where they were headed. As they approached a junction, Alex held up a hand, signaling for Rachel to stop. Peering cautiously around the corner, he spotted two more guards stationed near the entrance to the cargo bay. Their weapons gleamed under the harsh lighting, and their body language suggested they were expecting trouble. We can't fight our way through this, Rachel murmured, her voice barely audible. There are too many of them. Alex nodded, his mind working quickly. We'll have to distract them, he said. Give me a minute. Without waiting for her response, he slipped away, disappearing into the shadows. Rachel pressed herself against the cold wall, her heart pounding. She hated feeling useless, but she trusted Alex, at least enough to give him a chance. Moments later, a loud crash echoed from the opposite end of the corridor. The guards turned sharply toward the noise, exchanging quick words before moving to investigate. It was just the opening they needed. Now, Alex hissed, reappearing beside her. Together, they darted toward the cargo bay, slipping inside before the guards could realize they'd been tricked. The large room was dimly lit, filled with crates and equipment stacked haphazardly. In the center stood several small shuttles, their sleek designs hinting at advanced technology. This one, Alex said, pointing to a shuttle near the far wall. It's prepped for launch. They climbed aboard, and Alex quickly powered up the systems. As the engines hummed to life, Rachel inserted the portable drive into the ship's console, scanning its contents. What she found made her blood run cold. These aren't just weapons, she said, her voice trembling. They've been reverse engineering alien tech, stuff we don't even understand yet. And some of it looks like it's designed to control entire populations. Alex glanced at her, his expression grim. That explains why they're so desperate to keep us quiet. Before either of them could say more, the shuttle rocked violently as something slammed into its hull. Alarms blared inside the cockpit, warning of an external breach. Through the viewport, Rachel saw armored figures rappelling down from the ceiling of the cargo bay, their weapons trained on the shuttle. They're not letting us leave, Alex muttered, gripping the controls tightly. With a sudden burst of acceleration, he maneuvered the shuttle forward, dodging laser fire as it sped toward the exit hatch. The impact of bullets hitting the hull reverberated through the cabin, but Alex didn't slow down. Instead, he activated the shuttle's override protocol, forcing the outer doors open just as they reached them. The shuttle shot out into the vastness of space, narrowly avoiding collision with a nearby patrol vessel. Behind them, the orbital station grew smaller and smaller, its once imposing structure now looking fragile and distant. For a moment, Rachel allowed herself to breathe, though the relief was fleeting. They weren't safe. Not yet. "We need to find Dr. Lisa Evans," Rachel said suddenly, turning to Alex. "She's tied to all of this. If anyone knows how to stop what's coming, it's her." Alex nodded, adjusting the shuttle's course. "Then let's hope she's still alive." The shuttle drifted silently through the darkness of space, its engines humming softly as Alex piloted it toward a remote moon on the edge of Earth's territory. Rachel sat in the co-pilot's seat, her eyes glued to the data from the portable drive. Each new revelation deepened her unease. The files confirmed what they had suspected. Certain human elites and alien factions were collaborating to exploit Earth's resources and its people. Project Eclipse, the military's secret weapon initiative, was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. "We're almost there," Alex said, breaking the silence. His voice was steady, but his hands gripped the controls tightly. He glanced at Rachel, who looked pale and exhausted. "You holding up okay?" Rachel nodded, though her mind was racing. "I just keep thinking about Hayes. He knew something was wrong, but didn't act fast enough. And now we're the only ones trying to stop this." Alex didn't respond immediately. Instead, he focused on navigating the rocky terrain of the moon below them. The surface was barren and desolate, dotted with craters and jagged cliffs. In the distance, a faint glow marked the location of an underground facility, Dr. Lisa Evans's last known whereabouts. As they approached the landing zone, Rachel noticed movement near the facility. Strange vehicles patrolled the area, their designs unfamiliar yet eerily advanced. "Those aren't human," she whispered, pointing to the screen. "No kidding," Alex muttered. "Looks like we got company." They landed the shuttle behind a cluster of boulders, shielding it from view. Armed with basic gear scavenged from the ship, they moved cautiously toward the facility. The airlock entrance stood partially open, its metal frame scorched as if damaged during a struggle. Inside, the corridors were dimly lit, the walls lined with strange machinery that hummed faintly. "Stay close," Alex said, his voice low. "We don't know what's waiting for us." They soon found evidence of chaos: overturned tables, shattered equipment, and scorch marks on the floor. It looked like a fight had taken place here recently. Rachel froze when she spotted a familiar face lying unconscious against a wall. It was Dr. Lisa Evans, her mentor and one of the missing scientists. "Lisa," Rachel rushed to her side, checking for signs of life. To her relief, the scientist stirred weakly, her eyelids fluttering open. "Rachel?" she murmured, her voice hoarse. "What happened here?" Rachel asked, helping her sit up. Dr. Evans shook her head, wincing in pain. "They came for us. For the research. They wanted to use our work to control entire populations. I tried to resist. But," her voice trailed off, tears welling in her eyes. Alex knelt beside them, scanning the room for threats. "Can you help us stop them? Is there anything left of your work?" Dr. Evans hesitated, then nodded slowly. "There is. A failsafe. A way to disrupt their systems. But activating it requires access codes only General Bennett has." Rachel exchanged a glance with Alex. Time was running out, and they couldn't afford delays. "We'll get those codes," she said firmly. "But first, we need to get you out of here." Before they could move, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Shadows appeared at the far end of the hallway, accompanied by the unmistakable glow of alien weapons. "We're not alone," Alex warned, pulling out his sidearm. Dr. Evans grabbed Rachel's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "You can't let them win," she pleaded. "If they succeed, humanity won't stand a chance." Rachel met her gaze, determination hardening in her eyes. "We won't let that happen." Alex took position near the doorway, ready to hold off whoever, or whatever, was coming. "Let's hope we live long enough to try," he muttered under his breath. The alien soldiers moved with precision, their glowing weapons casting eerie shadows on the walls as they advanced. Alex fired a quick burst from his sidearm. forcing them to take cover behind a fallen piece of machinery. The sound of energy blasts echoed through the narrow corridor, ricocheting off the metal surfaces. "We can't hold them off forever." Alex shouted over the noise, reloading his weapon. His voice was steady, but Rachel could see the tension in his movements. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Rachel crouched beside Dr. Evans, shielding her as best she could. "We need to move," she yelled back. "If we stay here, we're dead." Dr. Evans nodded weakly, clutching a small device in her hand. It looked like a data pad, its screen flickering faintly. "This has the fail-safe program," she said, her voice trembling. "But without the codes, it's useless." Alex glanced at Rachel, then at the advancing aliens. "I'll cover you," he said firmly. "Get her out of here." "No way," Rachel shot back. "We stick together. That's the only way this works." Before Alex could argue further, one of the aliens stepped into view, its weapon aimed directly at them. Without hesitation, Alex fired, hitting the creature squarely in the chest. It stumbled backward, giving them a brief window to retreat. "Go," Alex ordered, gesturing toward a nearby access tunnel. Rachel helped Dr. Evans to her feet, guiding her toward the opening. Alex followed closely, laying down suppressive fire to keep the aliens at bay. Inside the tunnel, the air was thick with dust and the acrid smell of scorched metal. The passage twisted sharply, making it difficult to navigate in the dim light. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder, footsteps pounding against the floor, voices shouting in an alien tongue. "They're gaining on us," Rachel called out, glancing over her shoulder. Her heart raced as she realized how close they were. Dr. Evans stumbled, nearly falling, but Alex caught her before she hit the ground. "Keep moving," he urged, his breathing heavy. He handed Rachel the data pad containing the failsafe program. "Take this. If anything happens to me, make sure you get it to Bennett, or stop him yourself." Rachel hesitated, gripping the device tightly. "Nothing's happening to you," she said firmly. "Not today." They reached a junction where the tunnel split into two paths. One led deeper underground, while the other sloped upward toward the surface. Rachel paused, unsure which way to go. "Which path?" she asked, turning to Dr. Evans. "The upper route leads to the surface," Dr. Evans replied, pointing ahead. "But there's a security checkpoint. You'll need clearance to pass." Alex cursed under his breath. "Great, just what we needed." As they climbed the slope, the sound of pursuit faded slightly, though it was clear their enemies weren't far behind. Reaching the checkpoint, they found a sealed door guarded by automated turrets. A keypad on the wall blinked expectantly, waiting for a code. "I've got this," Alex said, pulling out a small hacking tool. He connected it to the panel and began working quickly, his fingers flying over the tiny screen. Seconds felt like hours as the group waited anxiously, the distant echo of footsteps growing closer. Finally, the door hissed open, revealing a narrow staircase leading upward. "Let's go," Alex urged, ushering them through. As they ascended, the sound of explosions shook the facility below, rattling the walls around them. "What was that?" Rachel asked, panic rising in her chest. "Distraction," Alex replied grimly. "I rigged some charges before we left the lab. Should buy us some time." Reaching the surface, they emerged into the cold, desolate landscape of the moon. The shuttle sat where they had left it, untouched for now. But in the distance, alien ships loomed ominously on the horizon, their engines glowing like angry eyes. "We need to get out of here now," Rachel said, pushing forward. Alex nodded, helping Dr. Evans climb aboard. As the shuttle lifted off, Rachel stared out the viewport, watching the facility disappear beneath them. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe. But deep down, she knew the hardest part was still ahead. The shuttle hurtled through space, its engines straining as Alex pushed it to maximum speed. Behind them, the alien ships gave chase, their sleek forms cutting through the void like predators stalking prey. Rachel sat in the co-pilot's seat, gripping the armrests tightly as she watched the pursuers grow closer on the monitor. "They're gaining," she said, her voice tense. "We can't outrun them." Alex didn't respond immediately, his focus entirely on the controls. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead as he made a sharp turn, trying to throw off their attackers. "We don't need to outrun them forever," he muttered. "Just long enough to get to Earth." Dr. Evans sat in the rear compartment, clutching the datapad with the failsafe program. Her face was pale, but her eyes were filled with determination. "If we don't make it," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "you have to promise me you'll use this. Stop them at any cost." Rachel turned to look at her, shaking her head firmly. "We're going to make it," she said, though uncertainty lingered in her tone. "All of us." As they approached Earth's atmosphere, the alien ships fired warning shots, narrowly missing the shuttle. The impact rattled the cabin, and alarms blared loudly. "Hold on," Alex shouted, bracing himself as he initiated a steep descent. The shuttle shuddered violently, heat shields glowing red from friction with the atmosphere. Once they broke through the clouds, the landscape below came into view, rolling hills and dense forests stretching toward the horizon. Alex guided the shuttle toward a secluded clearing near a military base. It wasn't ideal, but it was close enough to General Bennett's headquarters for their plan to work. "We're down," Alex announced as the shuttle touched ground with a jolt. Before anyone could speak, Rachel stood up, her expression resolute. "I'm going to see Bennett," she said. "He has the codes, and I'm not leaving without them." "I'm coming with you," Alex replied, already reaching for his weapon. "You're not facing him alone." Rachel hesitated but nodded. "Fine, but stay close, and be ready for anything." They disembarked quickly, leaving Dr. Evans behind to guard the shuttle and the failsafe device. Moving cautiously through the trees, they reached the edge of the military base. Armed soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their movements disciplined and alert. Rachel recognized the insignia on their uniforms. It was Bennett's unit. "This isn't going to be easy," Alex whispered, scanning the area. "But we don't have a choice." Rachel took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. She stepped forward, raising her hands to show she was unarmed. "I need to speak with General Bennett," she called out, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling inside her. "It's urgent." One of the soldiers lowered his rifle slightly, studying her carefully. "Who are you?" he demanded. "My name is Rachel Carter," she replied. "Tell him I have information about Project Eclipse, and tell him it can't wait." The soldier hesitated before nodding to one of his comrades. Moments later, they were escorted through the gates and into the heart of the base. Inside, the air was thick with tension, soldiers rushing back and forth as if preparing for battle. When they finally reached Bennett's office, the general was seated behind his desk, his face unreadable. He looked up as Rachel entered, his gaze narrowing. "What do you want?" he asked coldly. Rachel stepped forward, holding his stare. "The truth," she said simply. "And your codes. If you care about Earth's survival, you'll give them to me." For a moment, there was silence. Then Bennett leaned back in his chair, his expression darkening. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," he said quietly. "But fine. Let's see how far you're willing to go." Outside, Alex kept watch, his hand resting on his weapon. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing for certain. Sacrifices would have to be made. Rachel stood in front of General Bennett, her hands trembling slightly but her voice unwavering. "The aliens aren't here to negotiate," she said, her words sharp and deliberate. "They're planning an invasion, and someone on our side has been helping them. If you don't give me the codes to activate the failsafe, we won't stand a chance." Bennett's face remained impassive, though his fingers drummed rhythmically on the desk. For a long moment, he didn't respond, his gaze fixed on Rachel, as if trying to gauge how much she truly knew. Finally, he leaned forward, his tone icy. Do you even understand what you're asking for? Project Eclipse wasn't designed to stop an alien invasion. It was built to ensure humanity could strike back. If I hand over those codes, it could mean war. Is that what you want? No, Rachel replied firmly. But war is already here. The difference is that right now, we're losing. And not just to the aliens. We're losing to betrayal, greed, and fear. Your secrets have made us vulnerable. It's time to change that. Bennett studied her for another long moment before exhaling sharply. Fine, he muttered, pulling a small device from his pocket. He placed it on the desk between them. This contains the access codes, but if you fail, the blood of billions will be on your hands. Rachel picked up the device without hesitation. Then I'd better not fail. As she turned to leave, Alex met her at the door, his expression grim. Together, they hurried back to the clearing where Dr. Evans waited with the shuttle. The alien ships were still visible in the distance, their ominous presence a reminder of the stakes. Dr. Evans wasted no time once they boarded. She inserted the data pad into the shuttle's console and began entering commands, her fingers flying over the keys. We need to transmit the failsafe signal globally, she explained. It'll disrupt their control systems, but it won't destroy them completely. And what about Earth? Alex asked, his voice tight. What happens to us? It's a risk, Dr. Evans admitted. But if we don't act now, there won't be an Earth left to save. Rachel nodded, her resolve hardening. Do it. The shuttle shuddered as the program initiated, sending pulses of energy rippling outward. On the monitors, alien ships faltered mid-flight, their systems failing one by one. Cheers erupted among the human forces below, but Rachel felt no joy, only exhaustion. Back on Earth, the aftermath was chaotic. Cities lay in ruins, millions had perished, and trust between nations and species was shattered. Yet amidst the devastation, Rachel stood on a hill overlooking a partially rebuilt city, the sun rising behind her. She clutched a photo of Alex, who had sacrificed himself to buy them enough time to escape. His bravery had saved countless lives. General Bennett resigned in disgrace, taking full responsibility for decades of secrecy and mismanagement. In his place, new leaders emerged, people determined to rebuild not just infrastructure, but relationships. Rachel gazed at the stars, her heart heavy but hopeful. Peace might never come easily, but she vowed to keep fighting for it. For Alex, for Dr. Evans, and for everyone who deserved a better future. Somewhere out there, the universe watched and waited.